What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Underdog Podcast. Today we are continuing my off-season power rankings with Tier 3, the teams that I deem playoff teams. We're finally getting into the playoff teams here. It's taken us a little bit, but we're finally here. We're finally into the playoff teams. I don't think there's going to be any surprises here. Going to be honest, I don't think there's, a ton of surprises in this tier. Maybe in the next tier, you're going to have some surprises, but I think in this tier, pretty straightforward with what we were doing. So we had the 14th team in Pittsburgh revealed, so we're going back to the 16th and 15th teams here because they're from the NFC and they make the playoffs in this theoretical world. Again, these are not my official season predictions. This is just where these teams come in on paper for me. So we start back with our number 16th team, and that team is going to be the Philadelphia Eagles for me. Very intriguing offseason, a lot of interesting additions, including one today that I did add to this. So, very interesting. Although, even though I have it on the key departures and additions, he doesn't count towards this ranking because I don't have him there. That would be Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, what I'm talking about. But moving on to the key departures and additions, Brandon Brooks, Nate Herbig are gone on the offensive line for Philadelphia. Brandon Brooks, longtime starting guard, and Nate Herbig was a promising prospect. Hassan Ridgeway on the interior is gone. Ryan Kerrigan on the edge is gone, along with Jannard Avery. Alex Singleton heads to Denver, as he had a couple good seasons there in Philly. Steven Nelson, who had a good season for them last year, heads to Houston, and longtime safety Rodney McLeod is out the door. Key additions, they traded for A.J. Brown on draft night, which was probably the most surprised they had been at a draft day trade in a long time. They bring in Zach Pascal from Indianapolis. Isaac Seumalo comes back from injury. They draft Cam Jurgens from Nebraska. Brandon Graham comes back from injury. They get Hassan Reddick to bulk up to that edge depth, which is very interesting there in Philly. They draft Jordan Davis. They trade up for him ahead of Baltimore, which was a Howie Roseman pick to a T. Kazir White, which was one of my favorite offseason moves, getting here for Philly. Nakobe Dean, they draft in the third round. Don't know how much we'll see of him this year, but he is there. James Bradbury, they bring over from the Giants to upgrade that secondary, and they also bring in the man, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, to come out and solidify this secondary here for Philadelphia. So we move into their offense, which is currently tied for 14th with another team. I can't remember who it is off the top of my head right now. But Philly comes in with a number 14 offense. Starting with the quarterback, they are 25th in that department. Listen, man, I need people to stop telling me that Jalen Hurts is a top 15 quarterback in football, because he's just not. And this is a big year for Jalen Hurts. This season for Philly relies heavily on the success of Jalen Hurts. And I've always been a defender of Jalen Hurts when he came out. I think that it was a bad pick by Philly at the time. It was a reach in the second round, but I could understand why they took him. And then I was pushing for him to be the starter in Philly just because Carson Wentz was not good. He was one of the worst quarterbacks in football that year. And then now it's kind of like I'm almost deemed as a Jalen Hurts hater, even though I'm not. I think Jalen Hurts can be a good quarterback in this league. It's just people just so overrate Jalen Hurts. He's still a one read and run quarterback, maybe two if you're lucky. He's not very accurate with the football. He's not a great processor. He's very good in the quick game, but if you ask him to go through and read his progressions, that's not something he does very well. He's very inconsistent. He just needs to be more consistent this year in order for Philly to be deemed a true, NFC champion contender, in my opinion. So that's why I have them lower. Gardner Minshew there is at the backup spot is an intriguing backup. Guy who probably should be starting in this league, but isn't currently. So just something to keep an eye on. They did cut Carson Strong today, which I felt like was unnecessary, but they did cut him. Moving on to the running backs here, I have them at 28th. Look, I've been a Miles Sanders fan. I've been pushing for him to get more carries, but they hate giving it to the running backs here in Philly. And Sanders has not had a great last 2 years, and the problem is volume with him. He hasn't gotten the volume that he should to prove that he could be a top 20 back in this league. And I think he could be. He's got a nice skill set. I think part of the reason, too, is he's had trouble with drops, which is why they have guys like Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell to come in and take those reps from him on third downs. Moving on to the weapons, I have them at 14th here. So A.J. Brown's a bona fide number one receiver here for Philly, which they've kind of been, I don't know if they want to say like missing, but they really haven't had a guy like this since Alshon Jeffrey, probably, when they made that Super Bowl run and he was healthy. Devontae Smith, really good number two receiver, can play in the slot, can play outside, phenomenal route runner, had a really good season last year in his rookie year for Philly. And then it's kind of either Zach Pascal or Quez Watkins there as that third or fourth receiver. It'll be interesting to see who will take the reps there. Jalen Reagor has been fueled in trade talks. I don't know if he got cut or not. I did not see any news about that. And then I think Britton Covey and Greg Ward made the team. So those are guys to keep an eye out. Dallas Goedert's a great tight end there. Really can do it all, can block, push the field vertically, and be a possession type receiver. Jack Stoll, a guy to keep an eye on out there. Really liked him when he came out as well. Moving on to their O-line, they're first. This is something that Philly has built, consistently over the last, 5, 6, 7 years. They've been one of the best O-lines in the league. Jordan Mailata breaking out as one of the best young left tackles in football. Dude's an absolute mauler and an amazing athlete. Landon Dickerson there at left guard. Good pickup, was a, stock fell because he was hurt in last year's draft, but a good pickup. Jason Kelce, probably maybe the first or best center in the league. I think when Frank Ragnow is healthy, there's a case to be made that he is, but nonetheless, Jason Kelce there. Isaac Seumalo coming back at right guard from the injury last season, and then Lane Johnson. They also have Dillard, Jack Driscoll, Cam Jurgens as depth there, and offensive coaching there, 12th, Nick Sirianni. Getting that team to the playoffs last year was very impressive, to say the least, for an average rank of 15.24. We move on to Philly's defense, where they rank 13th. Definitely not a weakness on this team. Their defense is pretty good and certainly upgraded from years past. Their run defense comes in at 15th. You got Derek Barnett, Jordan Davis, who's a really good run defender, obviously, coming out of college. Derek Barnett, hustle player there. Fletcher Cox is a good run defender at his own point. You got Josh Sweat, who's another good run defender. TJ Edwards, who's going to be kind of your mauler there in the middle, your thumping linebacker. Kazir White's more of a run and chase guy, along with Nakobe Dean. They're fine in, as run defenders. And then they got a whole bunch of guys here on the edge. Brandon Graham, Hassan Reddick, Teron Jackson to watch out for, and then Javon Hargrave, Milton Williams as well on the inside. Davion Taylor at running back. We move on to pass rush here, where they rank 9th. Very good pass rush unit. They have Hassan Reddick bringing over, has had a really productive last 2 years with Arizona and Carolina there. Fletcher Cox probably slowing down a little bit, but still a very good pass rusher. Brandon Graham, really good pass rusher in his own right, and then Josh Sweat, and then they just have everybody that we talked about there for their backups. The linebackers, I have him ranked 10th. Really solid unit. Love Kazir White. He's one of my favorite players in the league. His coverage instincts are one of the best in the league. TJ Edwards, really good against the run. He's not the best athlete, so he's not great in coverage, but he will definitely be a force in the run game. And then you got Nakobe Dean, Davion Taylor, and Jacoby Stevens, who are similar will linebacker role types that will be good in coverage as well for this team. Then we have the secondary, which ranks 10th, much upgraded. Again, this is not adjusted for the Chauncey Gardner-Johnson move, which probably would bump them up a spot, maybe 2. So Darius Slay, number 1 corner, big play Slay, always in the right spot, always making a bunch of plays for the Eagles. James Bradbury, really good corner 2, struggled last season after having a really good first year in New York. I think he should be better here. Avonte Maddox is one of the most underrated slot corners in the league. He's super versatile, really fast, quick, can stay with a lot of people. They got Jimmy Moreland, Zach McPherson, Josiah Scott as guys to watch out for there. And then Chauncey Gardner-Johnson comes in to be their safety one, and Kayvon Wallace, another guy that I love. These guys, why I love these two players, they're very versatile. They can play over the top in a high safety role, so they can both play in too high. You can take them down and put them in the box, play as an extra linebacker type in run situations. You can match them up against tight ends. You could put them in the nickel or the dime as corners, and they will both be very effective. So I really love that. Marcus Epps is a really good special teamer there as well for their third safety. For defensive coaching, they come in at 31st. Jonathan Gannon is just a more inexperienced defensive coach, but I do think he has the ability to rise there over the course of this season. And home field advantage, I have Philly at 16 for a 14.10 grade. Moving on into the overall team aspect here, as Philly comes in as my number 16th overall team with the 14th best offense, 13th best defense, 26th best special teams. Jake Elliott, not bad as a kicker, but they have kind of been on a downward spiral there in special teams. And then they are the 20th best culture. I think Nick Sirianni is a good head coach. I don't think he's bottom 10. I think he's more towards the middle. It was hard to rank these middle group of coaches here, but I do think he's a good coach, even though the ranking doesn't really say that, but I really do think he's a good coach. And then for their average rank, I have them at a 15.15. Moving into Philly's strengths and weaknesses here, definitely a big strength for them is offensive line. The best in the league. Been the best in the league for a long time now. They will continue to help this team win. Their D-line has also been really excellent. That's why Philly's been able to really not be terrible the last, few seasons. Their O-line and D-line has kept them in a lot of games. Then their secondary, which has been, kind of after the Super Bowl, it was really awful for a few years. And then last year they got Darius Slay, so there was some promise. And then this year, getting James Bradbury, getting Chauncey Gardner-Johnson really has elevated this secondary to being one of the best units in football. Weaknesses, I have quarterback play. Jalen Hurts has been really inconsistent throughout this year. I would love to see him get more consistent, and this team really does ride a lot on him. Run game I have as a weakness, mainly because they just don't give their running backs the volume they should. Jalen Hurts adds a very unique dimension to this run game, which does allow it to be great, but more so I'm looking for them to be better in terms of getting their running backs in a better position to be successful. Then I have defensive coaching as their last weakness here. So that will do it for my number 16 team. Moving on to my number 15 team here, sticking in the NFC. A team that missed out on the playoffs last year in the New Orleans Saints. So we start with their key departures and additions. Saints missed the playoffs last year, right? Yeah, they did. Okay, I'm just making sure I didn't screw up right there. So moving on to their key departures and additions, longtime head coach Sean Payton retires, one of the best coaches of all time, in my opinion. They lose longtime left tackle Teron Armstead, absolute beast, man. He heads over to Miami. Christian Ringo's gone, a rotational player in the IDL. Quan Alexander, who had an insane hit in the final preseason game. If you haven't seen that, you better watch that. Marcus Williams, one of my favorite players in this league, one of the most underrated players in this league. Malcolm Jenkins, he's a bum, but he's now off this team. And then the just recently traded today, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Key additions, Dennis Allen is promoted to head coach. Ryan Nielsen is promoted to DC. Jameis Winston coming back off injury along with Michael Thomas there, hoping that duo can be healthy the entire season. They draft Chris Olave, traded up for him in the first round, which was an interesting move to say the least. They bring in the bum Jarvis Landry. I'm not a Jarvis fan. Draft Trevor Penning with their other first-round pick to replace Teron Armstead. Peyton Turner, their first-round pick in 2021, coming back off injury. Marcus May comes over from the Jets. Tyrann Mathieu comes over from the Chiefs. And then Will Lutz, their kicker, comes back from injury as well here. So moving on to the Saints offense here, they're going to be ranked 21st. Start off with here. So this is the part of the team that I think could potentially bring them down this season. But they're definitely not the worst offense in the league. Starting with the quarterback, I have Jameis ranked 18th. I think people sleep on Jameis Winston. I think we saw a very different Jameis Winston last year where he was very, I don't want to say conservative, but he was playing more in the structure of the offense and allowing the offense to really give him an opportunity to make less mistakes and be able to put the ball in the right place. And that was a big development for Jameis because he hadn't always done that in the league. He'd been very volatile and very turnover heavy, and he wasn't last year. Looked like a completely different quarterback. Running backs, I have them 6th. Alvin Kamara is one of the best in the league. He's not as great of a runner as people say he is. He's just incredibly patient and is able to find those holes. His value is as a receiver, man. He is probably second to Christian McCaffrey in receiving. Maybe, Eckler is right there with them as well, but I think it's McCaffrey, Kamara, 1-2 for sure. Behind him, Mark Ingram coming back for that legendary duo that they had with both had 1,000-yard seasons. Tony Jones is a nice power back. I like him there as well. And I don't know of these guys to make the team. Josh Adams, Dwayne Washington, and Abram Smith, but any of those guys will do as 4th stringers. Weapons, a lot of people are higher on them. I have them 20th. Michael Thomas is coming off multiple injuries. He hasn't played in 2 years, so only time will tell to see how he is. Olave is a good number 2. I think will help Jameis because he can get open. Really good route runner there. I absolutely just I don't like Jarvis Landry, man. He's never been one of my favorite guys in this league. I've always thought he's overrated. He's slow. He is a good route runner and does find a way to get open and is gritty, but he's just, man, I think he's washed. Marquez Callaway is a guy I've really, really been a fan of. Had a good season last year. He's physical, really good catch radius, and his ability stood out last year. Also, keep an eye on Deontay Hardy as that return man kind of gadget-type player in their offense. Tight end-wise, they got Troutman and Taysom Hill. So, not a great duo there. Troutman I liked was my tight end 1 when he came out in 2020, but he really hasn't shown anything to this point. Juwan Johnson's another guy to watch out for. He had a good season for them last year. Their offensive line is 13th. Takes a hit with losing one of the best tackles in football in Teron Armstead. Trevor Penning, I think, can be a good player in this league. His pass protection needs to get better as well, and he needs to limit the penalties. Andrus Peat is fine there at left guard. He's not, nothing special. Eric McCoy is one of the best centers in the league, one of the most underrated players in the league. Doesn't get talked about enough. Cesar Ruiz had a rough rookie season, but ever since then he's been on the come up. Ryan Ramczyk might be the best right tackle in football because Lane Johnson can't stay healthy. So I would say he's the best right tackle in football. Amazing pass protector. When he gets his mitts on you, don't really get around him too often. Depth-wise at tackle, James Hurst, veteran there. And then interior, you got Forrest Lamp, Calvin Throckmorton, guys to watch out for there as well. Offense coaching, I have them 17th, still pretty good with, I can't remember who's their OC, but still very good there. And they finished with an average rank of 16.63. Moving on to their defense, this is where they make their money in New Orleans. 3rd overall defense, in my opinion, starting with their run defense, was 3rd. Marcus Davenport, very good run defender, really great hustler. His ability to make splash plays in the run game stands out. Onyemata, Shai Tuttle, very good run defenders from the interior. Cameron Jordan's a very good run defender as well, always has been. Demario Davis, he's do it all. I would say he's better in coverage, but definitely can play the run. Pete Warner's just solid against the run as well. DeMarco Jackson, bigger linebacker, probably going to be in there against the run. Guys to watch out for on the edge, Peyton Turner, Carl Granderson as well. And then for the interior, Albert Huggins, Malcolm Roach there. Probably get in. And then linebacker-wise, Zach Bond, Eric Wilson. Definitely guys to keep an eye on. For pass rush, I have them a little bit lower at 17th. They have a good pass rush. Marcus Davenport, good pass rusher. Definitely looking for him to be better this season coming off injury. Cam Jordan was... he's kind of slowed down as pass rusher in recent years, just getting up there with age. Onyemata and Shai Tuttle are fine pass rushers. Same guys we talked about there for pass rush depth as well. Linebacker-wise, I have them at 7th. Demario Davis is one of the best linebackers in the league. He was a late bloomer. But that dude is an absolute beast, man. Pete Werner, I wasn't the biggest fan of coming out, but he did show improvement later in the season to be able to both cover and playing us a run. Zach Bond's an interesting hybrid type, and he really hasn't been on the field too much for the Saints here, hoping that can change. And then Eric Wilson and DeMarco Jackson are the other two guys to watch out for. DeMarco Jackson more on early downs. He's a bigger, thumping type linebacker, and Eric Wilson's more of that typical will linebacker you see, really good in coverage for him. Secondary, I have them ranked second. Marshawn Lattimore, to me, is a top 5 corner in the league, and I don't think he's someone that's talked about enough. He is super physical and locks dudes up. Paulson Adebo was one of my favorite corners in last year's draft. I think he will have an even better season this year. Made some plays, definitely got beat a little bit, but that's kind of how you do with rookie corners. Look at A.J. Terrell. He was one of the worst corners in football his rookie year, and then was the best corner statistically last season. Bradley Roby's a solid veteran to have here, along with P.J. Williams as your corner 4. Alontae Taylor is there for depth as your CB5. This safety room's still very good. Tyrann Mathieu can do it all for this team. Marcus May will be the guy roaming over the top. Daniel Sorensen, we know how bad he is, but, we'll see if he can improve here under Dennis Allen, who's a very good defensive coach. Justin Evans, who hasn't played football in 2 years. I don't know if he made the team or not, but a guy to keep an eye on there as well. And then defensive coaching, I have them second because Dennis Allen is one of the best defensive minds in this game. And then home field advantage, I have them 8th for an average rank of 7.22. Moving to their overall team here, I have them as the 16th overall team with the 21st best offense, 3rd best defense. And then I have them as the 6th best special teams unit and culture 26th. I think Dennis Allen is a fine head coach. I thought he was the least intriguing hire of the offseason, but I think it made sense for the Saints to keep him in-house as the head coach with the defensive mind that he is. He's one of the, the best in football there. And they finished with an average rank overall of 14.70 here. So now moving on to their strengths and weaknesses. I have their strengths as O-line, still really good, even with the loss of Teron Armstead. I think it's one of their best assets for this team. Defensive coaching, talked about it, Dennis Allen, second best only to Bill Belichick in the league. And then secondary, man. This secondary is a force to be reckoned with out here. They're going to be definitely making some plays out here. Weaknesses, running back depth. I just don't really see dynamicism. Is that a word? Dynamicism? We'll go with it. Behind Kamara, Mark Ingram's getting up there in age, and Tony Jones is more of a power back. I would like to see Deontay Hardy take some snaps back there maybe in the backfield. Tight ends I have as a weakness. I'm just not really thrilled with what they have there. And then pass rush, I don't think it's a big weakness, but probably the weakest point of their defense. Just threw it in there to balance that out. So that finishes my number 15 team here. So we move on to my number 13 team here, which is going to be the Dallas Cowboys. So looking at their key departures and additions, starting with Amari Cooper, who at this point is officially underrated. I think he's officially top 2 or 3 most underrated player in football. I mean, it's crazy how people just think Amari Cooper is washed. I think they're going to miss Amari Cooper a lot. Amari Cooper really helped Dak progress as a quarterback by being one of the best route runners in football and getting open every play, and having, Dak having a reliable weapon to go to every, pivotal down was huge for him, and now he doesn't have that. Can CeeDee Lamb be that? I certainly think he can, but he's not the route runner that Cooper was. They also lose Cedric Wilson, who had a really nice season last year for him. Blake Jarwin, who fell out of favor after Dalton Schultz broke out when he tore his ACL in 2020. Connor Williams, their starting guard, is on the way out the door here. Lyle Collins, their starting right tackle, when he's been on the field because he's been hurt, suspended, stuff like that, leaves. Randy Gregory is out the door. DeMonte Kazee and Greg Zuerlein are also out the door here. Their additions, they get Jalen Tolbert in the draft, who will be put to the test right away, with James Washington going down with injury, who is also an addition to this team, and Michael Gallup being hurt. They draft Jake Ferguson in the draft, literally a Dalton Schultz clone, Tyler Smith, they draft in the first round out of Tulsa. We'll see if he's going to be starting at guard or tackle with the Tyron Smith injury, which this team is not updated by that injury, by the way. DeMarcus Lawrence, Neville Gallimore, Trysten Hill come back from injury on the D line, and then they get Anthony Barr over from the Vikings to help out that defense as well. Moving on to the offense, I deem this the strength of this team as they have the fourth best offense in football, in my opinion. Starting with the quarterback at 12th is Dak Prescott. I think Dak is a solid quarterback in this league. He's one of those tweeners, and I think there's three of these guys in the league, in Carr, Cousins, and Prescott, where I think sometimes you can win games because of them, but you can lose games because of them. And they're in this weird tier where it's like they are franchise quarterbacks, but they're not elite, in my opinion. They're not elite quarterbacks. Dak, I've never been the biggest fan of Dak, but I will give him credit is that he always seems to bounce back from adversity. I think Dak is really a tribute to if something doesn't go your way, you can always, change that. You can always make that, a big, you can always write your own story. I think the biggest example was when he came back from injury and just tore it up. Running backs, I have them at 14th, and I know Cowboys fans are going to be mad about this, but I don't know, man. They really haven't been as productive in recent years as they should be. Zeke is, man, he looks washed, in my opinion, honestly. He just really hasn't been that same guy since he got that new contract. Tony Pollard will probably outproduce him this year, in my opinion. And then behind him, they don't really have much depth if one of these guys gets hurt. So it's the reason I have them lower. Weapons, I have them at 10th. I think it's a very good group of weapons and would probably be higher if Michael Gallup and James Washington weren't hurt to start the season. CeeDee Lamb, bona fide stud. This dude, he's an absolute beast, man. Physical player, sometimes has some drop issues, but I think he will be he will take that next step. I don't know if he'll be with like the Jamar Chases and Justin Jefferson in the world, but I think he'll be, right behind them per se. Michael Gallup's a really good route runner, really solid hands, and he's an underrated deep threat in this league as well. James Washington, nice vertical threat. Tolbert, he's physical, man. I think that's what stood out to me about his tape from South Alabama. He's physical. He's got good hands. I was lower on him because I thought his route running was just okay, but he will be a solid option for this team right away. And then Noah Brown's going to be their receiver 3 to start out the gate. A guy who's never caught a touchdown in this league. A guy who I thought has always been a little underrated coming out of Ohio State. So we'll see if he can take advantage of this opportunity. Guys you want to watch out for, Simi Fehoko, who was drafted in the 4th round last year from Stanford. Will probably get some reps there with those other guys hurt. And then Dalton Schultz, really solid tight end, chain mover, Jason Witten type. Jake Ferguson is a copy of him pretty much there as well. Moving on to their O-line, I have them at 4th. This is not counting the Tyron Smith injury. Tyron Smith, what is probably a first ballot Hall of Famer in my opinion. He just has not been able to stay healthy the last couple years. And he's probably going to miss the majority of the season here, which is a shame because he's one of the best left tackles in the league. Tyler Smith, the biggest problem with him, he's a good player. The biggest problem with him is holding. He can't help grabbing. So Cowboys fans, being a little bit for a rough ride here early on. I think he will get better as the year goes on, though. Tyler Biadasz, one of the most underrated centers in football from Wisconsin. Really solid, athletic center. Can, do power or wide zone schemes. One of the most versatile guys in the league. Zach Martin here. Best right guard in football. Absolute beast. Couldn't believe he was like 68th on the players' top 100 list. He should be like top 10 every year. And then Terrence Steele, who actually had a really good season last year. I'm really excited to see if he's going to play left or right tackle. I think he can really break out and be like a, mid-level tackle in this league. Guys to watch out for, Matt Waletzko was drafted from North Dakota on the tackle depth. I don't know any of those other guys that made the team. And then inside, you got Connor McGovern. You got Braylon Jones as well. I don't think Alec Lindstrom made the team, but Those are guys to watch out for. Offensive coaching, I have them at 14th for an average rank of 10.32. We move on to the defense here for Dallas. I have them at 21st. Everyone's hyping on this defense, and I'm just not on that train. So starting with the run defense at 22nd, it's not terrible, but it's not great. DeMarcus Lawrence is a good run defender. I think he's one of the more underrated edge defenders in the league. Can do it all, can rush the passer and defend the run. Odighizuwa, I think, should be much better than he was last season. A guy that I liked coming out of UCLA. He just really hasn't found his rhythm yet. Neville Gallimore, same thing. I think he should be better. Dorrance Armstrong Jr., this is a guy to watch out for, man. I love Dorrance Armstrong Jr. I think he's one of the breakout players here this season. I think he's probably going to be 6 to 8 sack guy and really be in the backfield a lot. It's just hard to determine how much he's going to play because Micah Parsons is probably going to be the edge on third downs and pass rush down. Speaking of Micah Parsons, absolute freak. Came out of the gates last year and just was so unexpected for him to be that good. Leighton Vander Esch they bring back here. Hasn't been the same since he was dealing with injuries, but still a good player nonetheless. And then Anthony Barr, another one of those hybrid players. Really interesting to see how Dan Campbell's going to utilize him. For edge depth, you got Dante Fowler Jr., Terrell Basham, and the rookie Sam Williams out of Ole Miss, second-round pick. Interior, Carlos Watkins, Tristan Hill. Linebackers, you got Jabril Cox, and I don't know any of those other guys that made the team, but Jabril Cox definitely one of the better cover players at linebacker on this team. Pass rush, I have him 12th. Very, very good pass rush here. DeMarcus Lawrence, again, one of the best guys in the league. Beat you with power. His cross chop is just incredible, man. Oso Odighizuwa, I think, will be better as a pass rusher as well. Same with Neville Gallimore, and Micah Parsons is just going to be even better in his second season as edge rusher. And then same guys we talked about there for edge and interior depth. Linebackers, I have them 5th because I am counting Micah Parsons as a linebacker. Micah Parsons, Leighton Vander Esch, and I'm drawing a blank on his name, Anthony Barr are very, very good trio. Parsons and Barr are hybrid guys that can cover, defend the run, and play out on the edge and rush the passer. Leighton Vander Esch is going to be your cover guy. Also a really good run defender as well. And then Jabril Cox, another guy who can play coverage. We'll probably see him as a sub linebacker maybe on third downs, so keep an eye on that. This is where, then the secondary is where I have big problems with for this team. I have them 31st. It's not a good secondary. You start with Trayvon Diggs, who is, I think, getting a lot of hate for his season last year. He has great ball skills. He's like Marcus Peters. He's going to give up some big plays, but he's going to make some big plays. He did give up the most yards in coverage last season, but I still think that he's probably a top 20 corner in this league. Anthony Brown got roasted last season. Everyone talks about how Trayvon Diggs got roasted. Anthony Brown got roasted last season. I mean, he was not good as a cornerback too. Jordan Lewis is fine as a slot corner. He's probably middle of the pack there. Kelvin Joseph, I think, should be better this season out of Kentucky, but we'll see how much he gets on the field. They don't really have anybody there for depth. Malik Hooker's their safety 1. I thought Malik Hooker was a bona fide first-round pick when he was coming out of Ohio State. He's kind of bounced around here the last couple years, really hasn't been able to stay healthy and play consistently. They got Jaron Kearse behind him. Not a big fan of him. Donovan Wilson's fine as a third safety. For defensive coaching, I have them 11th. Dan Quinn's one of the best defensive coaches in the league and really kind of revived his reputation last year for them. I have an average rank for them on defense of 17.68. Moving on to their overall team here, Dallas is my number 13 overall team with the 4th best offense, 21st best defense. Special teams, I have them 19th, and then culture, I have them 28th. I'm not the biggest fan of Mike McCarthy, I'm being honest. I don't think he's one of the best coaches in the league. And they have an average rank there of 14.30. We move on to the strengths and weaknesses of Dallas for starting off with a strength for their team. I have the weapons, definitely one of the best group of weapons here in football. O-line, one of the best O-lines. Even still with Tyron Smith hurt, I think their O-line is definitely a strength of this team and will help them to win games. And then linebackers, really, really good trio there that has a very versatile skill set. Weaknesses, Mike McCarthy, man. Mike McCarthy was the reason they didn't win that playoff game last year, and he's just not a good coach, man. I really hope Kellen Moore takes over for him next season. Run defense, not great. They're more suited for pass rush for Dallas there, and then secondary is just awful, man. And I know that's probably more of a hot take, but I'm not rocking with Dallas' secondary there. So that concludes my number 13 team. We move on to my number 12 team here. Heading back to the AFC, a team that made the playoffs last year, I think will make the playoffs again this year, is the Las Vegas Raiders. So we start with their key departures and additions here. John Gruden out the door along with the rest of their staff there with the incident that John Gruden had last year. Bryan Edwards out the door. They trade him to the Atlanta Falcons where he is their receiver 2, I believe. Zay Jones, they let walk out the door. He heads to Jacksonville. Denzel Good, I believe, retired or he's not on the team anymore. They trade Yannick Ngakoue to the Colts. Quentin Jefferson heads to Seattle. Solomon Thomas heads to the Jets. And then today they just traded Trayvon Mullen to the Cardinals, which actually now probably makes Dallas with the worst secondary in football, by the way. Some key additions. Josh McDaniels comes in here at the head coach. Patrick Graham, DC, one of the best DCs in football in my opinion. Really unique scheme as well. Davante Adams, who they traded for in the offseason, the best receiver in football in my opinion, comes here to Vegas, reunites with Derek Carr from their Fresno State days. Keelan Cole, solid receiver, comes in here. Draft Dylan Parham in the second or third round, I believe. Very good pickup in my opinion. They trade for or signed Chandler Jones to pair with Max Crosby. They draft Neil Farrell in the interior, and then they also pick up Alon Nichols, Tyler Lancaster, some solid veteran options there. Pick up Jayon Brown at linebacker, and then they traded for Rocky Sin in the Yannick Ngakoue trade at corner. We move into the offensive side of the ball here for the Las Vegas Raiders, where they currently rank 11th for me. And they start at quarterback with a guy who I've always been a fan of, really good person in Derek Carr, is 11th on my list. I think Derek Carr is a guy that, to me, the one thing he struggles with in his career is aggressiveness. I think he's one of the most conservative quarterbacks in the league. If he was aggressive, say like Justin Herbert, say Matthew Stafford, I think he would be closer to 7 or 8 than he is, to 11th right now. I think that Derek Carr has proved time and time again, though, that he can be a winning quarterback in this league. But I want to see him get back to that MVP level that he was at before he broke his tibia at the end of the season. I want to see that level of Derek Carr back, and I think we could see that possibly this year. Jarrett Stidham as well, have to take a note. He looked amazing as the backup quarterback, finally looked comfortable in the league there. So maybe they have something there in a backup quarterback. Moving on to the running backs, I have them at 10th. Josh Jacobs, really underrated at this point in his career. I think he's a solid back in this league. Zamir White beat out Kenyon Drake, so that's interesting of note there as well. Brandon Bolden, nice special teamer. Amir Abdullah had a really nice preseason as well. So guys to note there. Weapons, they're 5th. Davante Adams, best receiver in football. I don't need to say anything else. Best route runner in football. I will say something else there. Keelan Cole, one of those guys that you really love to have as a veteran receiver in your room. I think he's one of the best guys that you can have as a receiver 3-4 in the NFL at this point. Hunter Renfrow, one of the best slot receivers in football. Tyron Johnson, keep an eye on this dude. Really fast guy. Really love him as a player. I can't believe that the Chargers let him go. Just a guy to keep an eye on there. Mac Hollins, good special teamer as well. Darren Waller, one of the best tight ends in football. He's literally like a receiver. Absolute beast. Foster Moreau, one of the best 1-2 tight end duos in football. Foster Moreau, more of your inline tight end, good blocker, possession type guy. And then Jacob Hollister there is a nice third tight end as well. O-line, it's 31st. It's one of the worst in the league. Colton Miller, I love. Really came on the last couple of years as one of the best left tackles in football. Really good in pass pro. Dylan Parham, I like this pick. Good player coming out of Memphis. Probably going to start for them right away. Andre James, veteran center. Definitely below average. they cut Alex Leatherwood, and I think Brandon Parker retired, so that's probably going to be Jermaine Illuminor at guard. Maybe he's at tackle. I don't know. I don't know who's going to play for them, and then maybe John Simpson's at guard. It's probably John Simpson and then Jermaine Illuminor. I don't know, man, but this unit's terrible. They cut Alex Leatherwood today, which was, oh, man, the Raiders they suck at drafting, man. And then offensive coaching, I have them ranked 7th here. Moving on to average rank there, 13.05. Moving on to the defensive side of the ball, I have them ranked 16th, so right in the middle. Run defense, I have them 18th, not terrible. Max Crosby's a fine run defender. That's not his game. He's definitely a hustle player, though, so he will make those plays. Andrew Billings, Bilal Nichols, very good run defending interior guys. Will help that a lot. Chandler Jones is a fine run defender. Perriman, thumping linebacker, very good run defender. Jayon Browns and Divine Diablo are more cover players. Off the bench, Cleveland Farrell, really good run defender, along with Deshaun Bauer, Tyler Lancaster, Kyle Pecco, good run defenders as well. Nothing of note really for the linebackers. Pass rush, I have them ranked 10th. Max Crosby, Chandler Jones are one of the best duos in the league. They just don't really have much going for them in the pass rush on the interior. Hankins is not a great pass rusher. He's more of a run defender. Same with Bilal Nichols, but Chandler Jones, Max Crosby are guys to watch. Malcolm Kuntz is another guy to keep your eye on there on the edge there, and Neil Farrell Jr. as well. Young guys coming in there. Linebackers, I have them ranked 11th. Solid group. Denzel Perriman is going to be your thumping linebacker, making plays in the run game. Jayon Brown is probably your nickel, one of your nickel linebackers. Good cover player. Decent against the run, more of a run and chase guy. Divine Diablo, a guy I loved coming out of Virginia Tech, man. He's a beast. Going to play more this year as a dime linebacker, weak side linebacker, matchup guy against tight ends as well. They got Kenny Young, Micah Kaiser as guys to watch out for as well as more early down players. Moving on to their secondary, they're ranked 20th. They're probably going to take a hit with Trayvon Mullen gone, but Rock Ya-Sin, solid player there. Really good in man coverage, physical guy as well. Anthony Averett's probably going to take over for Mullen on the outside. Played really well with the fact that he didn't really have anybody around him last year in Baltimore with all those injuries. So I think they have enough confidence in him for him to play there. Nate Hobbs will be the slot. Was really good last year for them in that scheme. Darius Phillips, Meek Robertson, guys to watch off the bench. Trayvon Merrick, going to be one of the best safeties in football. His range is absolutely crazy. Deron Harmon is there as well. Veteran player in this league, has played a lot. Jonathan Abram will be more your in the box safety. Probably play as an extra linebacker too. And then you got Roderick Teamer there as well. Defensive coaching, I have them at 13th. Patrick Graham is one of the best defensive coordinators in the league. Home field advantage, I have them 11th for an average rank on defense of 14.46. Moving on to their overall team here, I have them as my 12th best team with the 11th best offense, 16th best defense. I have them 10th for special teams and 18th for culture. I think Josh McDaniels is a good head coach, and he will prove to be a good head coach here. Average rank for them overall is 13.75. And then we move on to the strengths and weaknesses here for the Las Vegas Raiders. So strengths, I have quarterback play. I think Derek Carr is definitely one of the most underrated quarterbacks in football at this point in time. I don't think people gave him enough credit for what he did with that Raiders team last year and that situation he was in. Weapons, they have one of the best group of weapons in the league. They got one of the best receivers and tight ends in football, along with one of the best slot receivers. Pass rush, really good pass rush duo there in Max Crosby and Chandler Jones, going to be wrecking havoc. Weaknesses, O-line, it's one of the worst in the league. Nothing really there of promise besides Parham and Colton Miller. Run defense, they're just not really set up for it. Their interior guys are, but their edge guys are not. Their linebackers, no one's great there except for really Denzel Perryman. And then their secondary, I have just, they don't have a ton of playmakers there. I like Rock Ya-Sin. I like Trayvon Merrick. Outside of that, I like Nate Hobbs as well, but outside of that, not really anything there intriguing. So we wrap up with my number 12 team, and we move into my number 11 team. And I know people are going to throw a fit at this because it's my favorite team. It's the New England Patriots. They're number 11th. And people are like, this guy is on crack. How is this team ahead of the Raiders? How is this team ahead of the Cowboys? How is this team ahead of the Broncos? I'm here to explain to you why they're ahead of them. And I do believe this. I do believe they're ahead of all these teams, personally. We move on to their key departures and additions. Josh McDaniels, longtime OC, out the door. James White retires as that third down pass-catching back. Shaq Mason was traded in a fifth-round pick to the Bucs, which I still don't understand that move to this point. Ted Karras heads to the Bengals as their starting guard. Dante Hightower out the door, still remaining unsigned. Kyle Van Noy heads to the Los Angeles Chargers, along with J.C. Jackson, who got $16.5 million, and that was an absolute robbery from the Los Angeles Chargers. I thought he'd get closer to $20 million. Additions here for the Patriots: Pierre Strong Jr. out of South Dakota State, fourth round pick, I believe. Devontae Parker in a trade coming over from the Miami Dolphins gives New England a bona fide number one receiver if he can stay healthy. Tyquan Thornton, drafted in the second round, is going to miss about 6 weeks with a broken collarbone. Cole Strange in the first round. I was mad about that pick initially. Now, not so much, man. Cole Strange is a player in this league for sure. Henry Anderson is a key addition, although they just threw him on season-ending IR. Mac Wilson in the trade with Chase Winovich comes over for New England here. Raekwon McMillan comes back from injury. He's going to have a big season for New England, probably be their most productive linebacker. Jonathan Jones comes back from injury. Marcus Jones and Jack Jones are drafted in the third and fourth round, respectively. And then Jabril Peppers here coming over from the New York Giants at safety. Then we move into New England's offense here, which is going to rank 18th overall for this team. So we move into the quarterback. I have Mac Jones ranked at 15th. That is with the Deshaun Watson suspension. If not, I have him 16th. A lot of people are hating on Mac Jones right now. I think Mac Jones is primed for a big season, personally. Was really good last year, exceeded my expectations as a first-round quarterback. His ability to process is better than most rookie quarterbacks I've ever seen. He commanded the offense very well last season. Down the stretch, he was not great. He struggled against Indianapolis. He struggled against Buffalo. He struggled against Miami. But I think that he will be able to build off that, and I really hope that the coaching for New England here does not screw his development. I think he's definitely one of those guys that can make that leap in year two here. It's just how much of a leap are we talking about? Brian Hoyer as the backup there is probably like your QB coach, honestly. He's played in this wide zone Shanahan type scheme before, so I think this is going to be big for him, big for Mac Jones to have Brian Hoyer there. Then they drafted Bailey Zapp in the fourth round. And a lot of people criticize this, but they needed a long-term backup that really fit their style of play, and Bailey Zapp is exactly that guy. Smart, heady quarterback, knows how to run an offense, doesn't make a ton of mistakes. So he probably will be the QB3, probably will be a healthy scratch for most games, but he is there of note. Running backs, I have them 16th. I think this is just one of the deepest group of running backs in the league. Damian Harris, really good running back last year, officially underrated at this point. People are not giving him enough credit for the season he had last year. Ramondre Stevenson, very, very good change of pace back. I think he could be their 3-down back by the time next season rolls around with Damian Harris walking out the door probably. I don't see the Patriots re-signing him. Pierre Strong Jr., perfect fit for this scheme. I think that he definitely was a big reason why they're switching over to the wide zone offense is he's able to hit those roles and be a home run threat. Ty Montgomery is probably going to step into that new role, James White role, and be really big for Mac Jones. He looked really good in camp. He had an injury in preseason week 3, but it doesn't deem serious. They let Kevin Harris, J.J. Taylor go. Those guys will probably be back on the practice squad there. Guys to keep of note. Moving to the weapons here. I have them ranked 21st. And for everybody that's hating on this group of weapons, I think it's the most underrated group in the league. I'm just going to say that right now. People are just absolutely sleeping on this team for their weapons. We start with Devontae Parker. When Devontae Parker was healthy for the Miami Dolphins, he was a number one receiver in this league. He was a capable number one receiver in this league. Devontae Parker's physicality stands out the most. I think he's going to be a really good red zone threat for this team to go along with Hunter Henry, so they have somebody else besides Hunter Henry to grab the attention towards in the red zone. I think he's, not the best route runner, but he doesn't need to be. He just needs to be a guy that, goes up, gets, 50-50 balls, red zone threat, be more of like the DK Metcalf of this offense. Kendrick Bourne, I think, is primed for a big season. I think he's probably going to be their most productive receiver. Him or Jakobi Meyers, probably a toss-up between them, but I think Bourne's one of the most underrated players in this league. Can play on the slot, can play on the inside. Physical player, he's tough. Love watching him play football. He's just one of the best in the league at like getting tough yards, I think, in my opinion. He's a good route runner, got good hands. I think he could be in the top 32 receiver discussion this year. Jakobi Meyers was the most productive receiver last year. Took I think, second-round tender for the Patriots this year. So, will be their starting slot. He's not a great athlete, but he catches everything. Finally got in the end zone last season, so that was great to see. But, yeah, I'm definitely looking forward for Jakobi Meyers this season. Nelson Aguilar will be their, deep threat, field extender. I think really watch out for him. They've done a lot of shot plays, like play-action shot plays in preseason. So watch for Nelson Aguilar to be a threat on those. And then Tyquan Thornton will also be a threat on those when he comes back from injury. In terms of depth, that's all the guys they kept on the roster. Matthew Slater's just a special teamer. I'm so mad they put Christian Wilkerson on season-ending IR. He was having a great camp till Kenny Robinson's bitch ass knocked him out in like kickoff, practice. Tight ends, Hunter Henry, very consistent player in this league, really good red zone threat, very good route runner. He's just a chain mover type thing. Jonnu Smith can't be any worse than he was last season. I think he will definitely be more involved in the offense this year. They will get him more touches on those like tight end sweeps, on stuff like that. I think they need to get him the ball more this season as well. Moving on to the O-line, I think it's 5th in the league. I think it's one of the best O-lines in the league. You got Trent Brown at left tackle, absolute mauling presence. This dude is an absolute beast. Cole Strange has looked really good in preseason, fits this wide zone that the Patriots are moving towards. He's just one of the most athletic guys in the league at the guard position. David Andrews has been at it for a long time. Very, very good player. Captain on that team, captain of the O-line, very good at blitz recognition and helps out Mac Jones a lot in that department. Michael Onwenu, who didn't play a lot last year when, Ted Karras kind of came in and played for him, but this dude is an absolute beast, man. Mauler, can play guard tackle. For a guy that's that big, you wouldn't think he had the foot speed to play tackle, but he can, and he's very good at it. And then Isaiah Wynn, who's kind of circled around in trade talks. He's probably not going to be on the team after this season, but I still like him. He's one of the, more underrated tackles in the league. He's probably around like top 12 to 15, right tackle at this point in the league. I think he's probably the best suited for this scheme. He's got guard, tackle flexibility. I don't understand why the Patriots had him in trade talks, but he's staying on the team for now. Then guys to watch, Justin Herron is their swing tackle there, and Yannick Adjust had a good camp as well. James Ferentz is a veteran guy, not really a big fan of him. And Chasen Hines there made the team as a draft pick, so that's cool to see as well. So we move on. Offense coaching, I have them 25th. Not sold on the Patricia-Joe Judge combo, but at this point it is what it is, and we got to roll with it. Average rank for the Patriots on offense, 16.13. We move into the defense, which is 15th overall. Starting with their run defense, it's 8th, man. This run defense is going to be very, very good. It's very underrated. Matt Judon isn't the best run defender, but he's still solid out there. Hustler will make plays. Lawrence Guy, the nose tackle in the middle, will plug the middle. I guess he's going to play on that in the 3-tech because Godshaw is really our nose tackle. Godshaw is one of the best run defending interior guys in the league. He really does make plays. He's not a pass rusher at all, but he really is able to take on 2 or 3 guys at once and make plays in the run game and open up lanes for our linebackers to come in there and make plays. Dietrich Wise, I think he's a tweener, plays edge and interior. Good run defender, could be a better pass rusher, but a good run defender, a hustler. He's just a Patriot type player. The other edge I'd probably say is Josh Uche, but they're going to play this weird, probably 3-3-5 defense, I would think. But Uche, he's a hustler again, good pass rusher with bend. more of a hustler player in the run game. Juwan Bentley is that thumping middle linebacker that the Patriots have always had there. Young player, just Bill, please don't have him in coverage against running backs. He's terrible in coverage. Raekwon McMillan was a guy that I wanted the Patriots to take in the draft originally when he came out. I'm glad he's here. He's a bigger linebacker. I think his coverage is definitely improving. Very good against the run. Excited to see him. And then Mack Wilson's a guy they really haven't had, where he's more of that linebacker safety hybrid, will linebacker, where he can cover tight ends. He's going to be their dime linebacker, and he can match up well against running backs as well. In terms of guys to watch out for on edge depth, Anfernee Jennings, who was put on season-ending IR at the beginning of last season, really had a nice preseason, strong preseason, has looked really good. DeMarcus Mitchell, the UDFA streak continues. I think the Patriots have had a UDFA on their team like 22 or 21 straight years in a row. IDL depth, we'll talk about Barmore more in terms of the pass rush. Henry Anderson was put on season-ending IR. Sam Roberts, 6th-round rookie from Northwest Missouri State, makes the team. Got to watch out for there. He made some really nice plays in preseason. Daniel Ekuale is suspended right now, but a guy who had a good camp as well, and Carl Davis there. Guys to watch out for. Linebacker depth, you really just have Jelani Tavai, who will, he's more of like that Juwan Bentley type in the run game where he'll, punish people. Moving on to the pass rush, it's not one of the strengths of this team at 22nd. Outside of Matt Judon, it's unproven. I think Barmore is going to be a beast there. He's really one of the best up-and-coming interior defensive line pass rushers in the league. He had the most pressures by any rookie interior defensive lineman. I think it was top 5 overall, so he's going to be really, really good. Matt Judon was one of the best before he got COVID, and then after he got COVID, he really slowed down. But I think removed from that, he's going to be one of the best, most productive edge rushers in the league. Dietrich Wise is solid there. And then you got Uche, Anfernee Jennings duo there, and we'll mix in. I'm expecting one of those guys to step up and be that solidified number 2 pass rusher. Moving on to the linebackers, I have them ranked 25th. It's not a great group. Juwan Bentley can't cover, couldn't cover a flea if he tried. Raekwon McMillan, I'm expecting to probably be our most productive linebacker there. And then Mack Wilson, I'm really excited to have. He's fast. He was really fast. That's really what stood out to me from him in preseason there. Moving on to the secondary, I think it's one of the most underrated secondaries in the league, 14th. Jalen Mills, number 1 corner. I think he's probably going to be a Pro Bowler this year. I think people are really underrating him. He had a phenomenal last 8-9 games of last season. Really, really solid player. Versatility, man. He can play safety. He can play nickel. He's going to be their outside corner, but he's versatile. Jonathan Jones, who has been their slot corner for the last, handful of years. Super fast player. Probably going to play on the outside there. Was hurt last season. Another versatile guy. I think starting off, it'll be Miles Bryant in the slot, who could play safety if need be as well. He's not a great athlete, but I like his technique, and the coaches really like him as well. Marcus Jones should be their dime guy here. Super fast player and is going to be a threat in the return game as well. Love Marcus Jones. Love that pick. If he was the size of Derek Stingley or Sauce Gardner, he would have been the number 1 corner in this draft because his technique is incredible. Jack Jones had a really good preseason, so we'll see how much he gets on the field there. And then Shaun Wade makes the team, which I'm a fan of. I like Shaun Wade. I think he should get some snaps throughout the season as well. They cut Terrence Mitchell, Joejuan Williams, Justin Bethel as well. So all those guys are cut. Safety room, this is probably the best safety room in the league. They're 5 deep. Devin McCourty is going to be their deep safety, quarterback of the defense type. Kyle Duggar, this dude is an absolute freak. I think he's going to be an all-pro this year. He's going to play some linebacker. He's going to play some high safety. He's going to match up against tight ends. He's going to, play in the box. He's just an absolute freak of nature, man. Duggar is one of my favorite players on this defense, and I think they brought in Peppers so that he can spy Josh Allen. I think they now have a legitimate guy to just say, hey, your assignment in this game is Josh Allen. Go do, spy him, make sure he doesn't get out of the pocket. I think that's going to be Duggar's role for, covering Josh Allen. Jabril Peppers, they bring in. He's a super fast safety. similar player to Duggar and Adrian Phillips, where he's going to play some linebacker, he's going to play some high safety. I think he'll play more of that than he has in the past with the Giants. He can match up against tight ends, he can play in the slot. So I really like the addition of Jabril Peppers here. Adrian Phillips has played, linebacker. He's played for this team. He has played some, deep safety. So we'll see, how Bill is going to use Duggar, Peppers, Phillips at the same time. Then Josh Bledsoe, who had a really, really nice camp. Young guy out of Missouri. Excited to see how much he's going to be a factor on this defense this year. Another guy that can play in multiple spots. He can play the nickel. He can play some, dime linebacker. He can play up top as well. And then Cody Davis, Brendan Schuler making it as special teamers there. Defensive coaching first. Bill Belichick, best to ever do it, in my opinion, at the defensive side of the ball. Home field advantage, I have New England at 7 there for an average rank of 14.42 as we move on to their overall team here, which comes in at 11th. They have the 18th best offense, the 15th best defense, the second best special teams, in my opinion, with Nick Folk, Jake Bailey. Very good duo there. And then the number one in terms of culture, because I think Bill Belichick's the greatest to ever do it, for an average ranking of 13.60. We move into the strengths and weaknesses here. Strength for the Patriots are coaching. Obviously, with Bill Belichick being the best coach of all time there, it's going to help you out. Offensive line, one of the best in the league. I think even with the departures of Ted Karras, with the departures of, I'm drawing a blank on his name right now, Shaq Mason, I think they're still one of the best O-lines in the league. They've got the best safety room in the league, in my opinion. Just versatility across the board there. Weaknesses, offensive coaching with Patricia and Joe Judge. Doesn't exactly, give me a vote of confidence, but we'll see what they can do there. Pass rush is one of the weaknesses of this team. They're more concerned about keeping the quarterback in the pocket rather than, dialing up, the sack numbers. Then linebackers, it's a weaker point on this team that lacks a bit of versatility there. But that is wrapping up my number 11th team. What do you guys think of this? I know you guys are going to complain that I have the Patriots too high, but that's just my personal opinion. What did you guys think of this tier? Did I leave any teams out? Are, there are teams here that aren't supposed to be here, besides the Patriots, of course. But let me know how I did. And as always, guys, have a great rest of your day and peace.